Hello everybody, welcome back. Cody here, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to add custom objects to your tracks in the Assetto Corsa. So one thing I've noticed and one thing I've been asked a lot lately is it seems like the industry of sim racing is getting really popular. And one of the most popular games was Assetto Corsa, and someone asked me because they see me make just a small little track a while ago. How do I add custom objects to the track? And I haven't been able to find a tutorial anywhere about this, so I'm going to show you a few ways to do this. It's very simple to do. I'm going to show you how to make objects solid and stuff like that. So that was one problem a lot of people have been having. Some people could get objects in, they're all FBX format, so make sure you just go on Sketchfab, get some FBX stuff. You're going to need Blender and you're going to need Assetto Corsa, because we are going to be using that KS editor in its install folder. So remember, we're going to be using that to batch up the map. This is a simple process. A lucky fella named Rem on YouTube provided these templates here on another YouTube tutorial I suggest you guys go watch. So I'll put those in the description of the video as well. He's the one that got me basically started doing this, so his tutorial, and I'm going to be basing this off of his templates, right? So I'll be crediting him in the video, and Dan Brusca on the Assetto Corsa community on Facebook for helping me figure out how to get the objects to be solid instead of me just driving right through them. Now I know about the name labeling and stuff, and he was completely right. Same with joining and using the one texture file for all of, like, say if you have a bunch of barrels and you have them all on the line, instead of adding a texture for each single barrel, we can just group them all in Blender, and then we can just add that one texture to the entire group, and it'll do the entire all of the barrels. So thank you to Dan Brusca if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Forgive me, or if I'm not. But we're gonna get started here. So I created a folder that has two of Rem's little circuits here. So he has a Gymkhana one and one for a track. So I'm going to include those. So they're both relatively similar in adding FBX format objects into this. So make sure you don't have OBJ but FBX. And I also added an objects folder. So if you did download some stuff, just drag them into there and then we'll be good to go. Also the textures, make sure you have them in there as well. But okay, so we're gonna get started here. So I'm gonna go. We're in the Assetto folder that you'll download. So I'll make a little what is it? A Google Drive link for you guys, and you'll see all of this. Okay. So we're only gonna be focusing on one of these folders for now. We'll do this one in another video, or we'll do a circuit. For now, we're just gonna do like a little playground with ramps and stuff you can jump into. Okay. So the first thing we're gonna do is just double click this Gymkhana folder here. Okay, and you're going to notice that we have this folder and a Blender folder, all right? So this does have a project in here we're going to be using. That's the template I have open in the background, and we'll be jumping in there in a second. But then this is the file that we're going to be using to bring into Assetto Corsa. So we won't be installing this manually because it probably usually gives you an error for some reason. So I found using the content manager, which is very easy. So make sure you download that also. It's free for Assetto Corsa. Just helps load the game faster. You can have new physics engines. You can tweak a lot more. And you can just click and drag zip files in there to install things. So that's how we're going to be doing that. So don't worry about this folder right now, but we will be overwriting one file in there later. So what we're going to do is focus on this Blender one. So go ahead and open up the Blender one. All right, now that we got that folder open and I have my Blender file like that, we do have the Gymkhana, what is it, the AC. So that is our map file that we're going to be saving out of the KS editor that I mentioned earlier. So just follow along and we'll get there. But anyway, this is the FBX file right here that we're going to overwrite from Blender. So what we can actually do is just scroll up and we have these folders. Just leave all of these folders. You don't need to touch anything but the project folder. So we're going to do that, and you're going to open up this project right here in Blender. So make sure you download Blender. Doesn't matter what version. I find this works in all. So just go ahead and open that up. Okay, now that we're inside of Blender, you're going to notice this is what you see right away. And if you take your mouse and you hold the mouse wheel and then you scroll around, you can go out of the view. But we're not in the texture mode. You're probably wondering what the hell all these are. These are actually trees, low definition trees. They're just two images that give the illusion of a 3D object, right? So you can actually click this viewport shading mode to get a better understanding of what's going on here. So this is our playground. There is a wall here. You can delete anything. You can sculpt. We'll save the sculpting for another tutorial. because that has to do with like dissolving vertices, which is also pretty easy. Maybe we'll be able to fit that in, but for now, this is about getting custom objects into your track. So you're going to notice that you have three arrows right here, and these are you. This is the car. These are pylons. So to give you a sense of the scale, that's the pylon, and this is your car. And it's about the height of your car, so it's about accurate. So we're just going to take these three arrows, and we can push these anywhere, because this is where we're going to be starting when we import it and when we boot up the game. So we're just going to push our arrows back like that, and then we can actually, from just right now, start importing some of our FBX files. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm just going to go ahead and import a couple of them. I'm going to get the ramp first. Okay, I imported a ramp. In the objects folder does have a few of the objects that I am using in this tutorial, so you can follow along with the same objects if you really have to. So, and one thing I'm going to do is add two ramps. I'm going to make one solid and one without the correct name, so that you can see the difference, just in case you are having issues just driving through objects rather than like into them per se, you know, and having physics. But for now, we're just going to import our ramp like this. I'm just going to rotate it. And what we can actually do is just kind of stretch it around, because we don't want to go straight up into the air, because the Assetto does have some weird physics, but you can make some pretty cool play parks if you just tinker around a little bit. So I'm just going to scale this. I always make the end of the ramp go into the pavement a little bit. It gives you a better, like, you know, a little launch here. So I'm just going to go like that. Okay. Got a ramp, and then I'm going to copy and then paste another one. So we'll make one solid and one not solid, so I can show you the difference. And it all has to do with how you name the object, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is just continue bringing in some FBXs. So I'm going to go back into the objects, get the tunnel that we had. I can actually just make this better. I use this for drift tracks, so you can make anything, right? So you can drift through this and all you want. So your minds can go wild, if you will. It's a lot of fun. It's a great game, especially for Sims and stuff like that. Whoop. There we go. Okay, now we got our little doohickey like there. I'm just gonna make sure these ramps are straight. That way we don't go flying straight into the wall. So you can actually press 7 on your numpad. Jeez, I keep doing that. And then you can get a better top-down view of what's going on here. And that way you can just press G and move the object around, and it doesn't go up and down through the map, right? So, but anyway, we're going to make this one not solid, and we're going to make the right one solid, okay? So remember that, and I'll explain that again when we get into the thing. Alright, so we got two objects in there right now. You don't have to worry about textures at all. So I think there's one more FBX we gotta add into the mix. It's some tunnel thing. And I'll show you, for example, what I mean if you have multiple barrels or something like that. Like, we'll use this as an example. So we'll make this like a little drift tunnel. So we can, again, use those pylons down there as an example of a scale. Or a reference, sorry. And then I can press 7 on my keyboard. And for some reason, this FBX file is 2 parts, so I'm actually just going to press Control J with them both selected to make them one object. And that's what we're going to do when we add multiple of these, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is press Control V, Control C, Control V. And we can just keep pasting these down. And mind you, we won't have to add the texture for all of these. As long as we group them together, we will not have to add them for all of them. We just have to add it once, and it will just automatically do it for us, which is great. So now we can start to do stuff like this, like a little drift. And I will be testing this with a Logitech Wingman, a little cool steering wheel I use for rally games. So I have a lot of fun in Assetto making maps and stuff like that. And I'm working on some really hyper-realistic ones. So another thing you can do as well is import photo scans. And you can get some super, super high detail maps. And there's good money in making Assetto content from what I've seen around. You know, I haven't yet done it, but as you see, we got like this snake, and that would be really annoying to add textures individually, having to right click, add the texture, and then do the values, right? So what we can do is hold shift and then click them. And with the last one selected like that, you're going to press Control J, and now they're all one object, right? So that's really great to do. So now we just have to add the texture and it'll just do the whole damn thing, right? So perfect, right? That's done. So the next thing we can do is pretty much finish this up. So we have to do the labeling, okay? So if you go into your cone folder up here at the top, you're going to notice that you have all of these things. We'll just get rid of all of that. Bring this back down. That's our original object right there. I don't know, there was a double over it for some reason, but good thing we caught that. Sometimes the objects you download from Sketchfab, then they're a little bugged out. And it was, oh yeah, sorry, there was two other halves, so this was split in four. I understand what happened. We only joined the two, so that's why it showed so many objects there at the side, but now it's showing what I would expect right here. So the next thing we're going to do is make sure we have whatever object we're going to rename selected. We're going to click this orange box here in the properties. So in OBS, I just want to make sure we're on the right page. Okay. And then right here in the name, we can change this. So what we're going to name this is, if we want it to be solid, you have to label it one wall and then underscore, and then just pick a name for whatever you would want. So I'm just going to go tunnel, doing something like that. And we're just going to go through and just relabel anything that we want solid like that. With caps. I would just do that with caps. So it would be case sensitive. Underscore and say ton. I don't know. I could do tunnels too if I really wanted to. But you couldn't do it, for example. Right here is how I used to figure out. This is why I had to get Dan Brusca on the community's help for doing this, is because it was labeling everything like this and it doesn't work. Everything will start to bug out, and if something isn't labeled correctly, sometimes the map won't even load into KS Editor. So if you're usually having editors or errors with the KS Editor, it's likely because of that. So the next thing we're going to do is remember, we're going to leave one of the ramps non-solid, so this is where we're going to be making that happen with this one wall thing. So right, I'm gonna go one wall underscore ramp. Okay, we got the cones, the export, I don't know which one that was, so we'll just delete that. We'll delete these extra concrete tunnels. That's just like the FB or something from the FBX. I guess whoever saved the file had a file way down there. But anyway, still want to make sure that's one object. Okay, cool, cool. And then we have our other ramp here. So we're just going to leave that like this, right? We're just going to leave it just called skate ramp. And we're not going to do the one wall thing I'm going to show you. So that'll be the left one. The left one will be able to drive right through. And the right one should be labeled correctly, one wall underscore ramp. So that should be good to go. And like I said before, you don't have to worry about textures. But what I recommend doing now is shift clicking everything with the one wall and then bringing that and dropping it into this map folder up here in the corner. Now that everything's into there, we're pretty much good to go to try to run this. And yeah, for now, we're just going to go up into File, hit Export, or Export as an FBX file. So I'm just going to go into OBS here, make sure I get that window popped up for you. So I'm going to get out of the Assetto folder. Okay. So let me make this a little smaller for you guys. All right. So now this is what you'll see after you hit export by FBX, and then you're going to see all of this stuff here. So we do have to navigate to the Assetto folder again. So this is what you want to look for. You want to go back to your Gymkhana folder, and this will be in that Blender folder. And then this is that FBX that I was telling you guys about earlier that we're going to overwrite. So just click it. Don't double click it, because we still have to change something here at the side, just so it has this name. That's all I'm asking you to click it for. But what we're going to do is change the scale right here under transform to 0.01. And then we're going to change the apply scalings to FBX all. So this is why you have to have your custom objects as an FBX. That way it saves with the map, okay? So now that we can do that, we can overwrite this existing file right there, and we're pretty much done, and we're good to go over into KS Editor, and we can start setting that up. And then after that, we get that into the game. So let's go do that. Okay, now that you have KS Editor open, you can find that in your Assetto Corsa installation folder. Just says KS Editor. Open that, make a shortcut on your desktop if you have to. Plan on making more maps, that way it's easier to find. Then you're going to hit File, Open FBX, and we're going to go to that Blender folder in our Assetto folder that you downloaded, and we're going to go to that file that we just exported, the AC Gymkhana FBX, and we're going to hit Open. And as you see now that we have our map imported into KS Editor. Now you can hold left click and use the arrow keys to navigate. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. And everything will be black and white for everybody to start off right now. And I'm going to show you to fix that very quickly. So down at the bottom, you're going to see all these little tabs. All we're going to do is click the illumination. The heavy fog, we're going to change it to clear. We're going to change the PPFX to default. And we're going to load them. So you're just going to hit load PPFX and load weather. And now as you see, it looks like exactly as we had it in Blender, but now with a skybox. So the next thing we can do is start adding all the textures. You have to add the textures or you get an error and stuff like that. And usually the map just doesn't load the object. But as you see, all of these objects, for some reason, didn't group up as I wanted them to. So we may have to just go in and do all of those tunnels. Just click that. But anyway, so what you're going to do is right click something to select it. So we'll do this tunnel right here. So just right click that. And then see these little buttons right here. So up at the top, you're going to see this. This is what your hierarchy is going to look like to start with. And next to scene, you're going to see material. So you're going to click material on anything that you have selected. And right down here in this red box is where you're going to apply the material that you downloaded with your FBX. So I'm going to go ahead quickly and find that. So these textures will be in the objects folder, in the Assetto folder that you downloaded. So objects, and then we're going to find the tunnel. I believe this is spawn tunnel, sloped tunnel. Okay. Now, as you see, our texture went onto the tunnel fine, and we're going to add it onto the ramps next. So we're just going to go ahead and apply all of the textures. Okay, now we got all of those textures on there. I just want to see if I can just add this to the group here of the material. One wall tunnels. Okay, now we can just add the material for these. Concrete, and they can go back. So if I would have grouped everything, I wouldn't have to go individually and do this. This is why I was saying in Blender, make sure you group it so you don't have to just add everything individually, because it can get kind of annoying after a while if you're doing like big projects with barrels. You just want everything to be one object, and usually you can do that by holding Shift Control Numpad Plus to make everything all one object, or Shift Control J, or just Control J inside of Blender. So I'm just going to go down this tunnel list. I'm just going to add all of these materials. Okay, now that we got all of our textures onto our tunnels, I just want to double check, make sure I go down. Okay. The next thing we want to make sure we do, say if you have a can and it's really bright, so a lot of people have been having problems with textures being really, really bright. And for example, I'm going to show you that this has a specular map on it. So if I click the ramp here, and then you look here on your properties above where we added the texture, I always change these first two to 0.3, and you'll see why. So I'm just going to copy that 0.3. I'm going to paste that. See how that's different from the other ramp? This is the actual texture of the FBX. So if your textures are still too dark, just make these 0.3, and then you can turn your specular off. So you can double click and just copy and paste that 0.3 in there and just turn your speculars off, and do the same thing for this. Some things look good with a little bit of the dark on it. So as you see, like, it's a completely different map when you take off that ambient light, the ambient shadow. And then after I do this, if I would have just had this as one group, I would only have to do this one time, but since I forgot to group it, just go down the line. I don't necessarily have to do this now. As long as the texture's on there, this will load into the game just fine. And we're pretty much good to go from right here to move on to the game. Okay, so one thing I think I forgot to do is move the player's start point. So the start point is usually right here. Oh no, sorry, yeah, we did move it. So we pushed it all the way back here, which is really good. So the next thing, all we have to do is save this map out. So back up at the top, what you're going to see is File, and then you're going to see a file that says Save KN5. You're going to highlight over that, and then hit Track. Okay? Now let me just go into OBS here and bring up the Explorer that I'm looking at real quick. A little save as window I need to get, so let me just add a quick little window here for you guys. Okay, so this is my save as window right here. So we are in the Assetto folder. Remember, we're the REM circuit and the Gymkhana. We're still in the Gymkhana folder, still in the Blender folder, and it's this course right here, okay? This red one right here, the KN5 model. We're going to overwrite that file, okay? So now that we have the new file, we're just going to hit save. And it says it already exists. Would you like to replace it? Just hit yes. And it's going to give you a message, KN5 has been saved, and that's good to go. So now we're good to go for bundling this into Assetto Corsa and giving this a test play. So let us jump over and back into the folder because we got to zip it up, and I'm going to show you how to add a custom name to it so you can find it in the game. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, now that we're back inside of our folder where we're going to be bundling everything, we have our new map track saved right here in the Blender folder. So what we're going to do is actually copy this, and we're going to go back one of the folders, and we're going to go back into that original Gymkhana folder that you have in there that you haven't been to yet. So it's right above the Blender folder. And then you're going to see all of this, the data extension and stuff. We're just going to paste this in here to overwrite this file. So every time you make a new map, you can just keep overwriting this and labeling it something new and just keep making new maps. That way you have all your data and your UI right there. You just got to change 2 names and you just keep pumping out maps. So it's all about getting creative rather than doing all of the confusing work. So just keep using this and you're good to go. So we're just going to replace that file right there, and that's all we have to do. So the next thing we're going to go do really quickly, we don't have to do this, but I'm just going to do it so I can find it. Double click the UI, and you're going to see this notepad right here. You can open this up, and you're going to notice that we have name, the track name and stuff like that. You can name this whatever you like, so I'm just going to call this YouTube, for example. So I'll just call it that, and the track is in Canada, okay? So that's all you have to do for that file, and you can hit the escape and then hit save. Now, the next thing all we have to do is boot up the content manager of Assetto Corsa and then import a zip file. So what we're going to do is actually show you how to do the zip file. So I'm going to go back over into this folder. So we're going to go back out of the folder where you can see the Blender and the Gymkhana. We're going to right click the Gymkhana folder, and then I'm just going to hit add to RAR, and it's going to compress it. Now as you see, we have a compressed map file, and that's what we're going to be using in the content manager, and all we have to do is drag and drop it. So let's boot up the content manager. Okay, now that you have the content manager open, the almighty content manager, this thing is amazing. You can do so much inside of this. All we're going to do is drag and drop that file that we just created, that new zipped up package. We're going to drag and drop that right on to our content manager. And you're going to see a little green box up at the top where it says switch to full version. You're just going to click that, and you should see a thing that shows your map, says the Gymkhana. We're just going to hit install on it. Then it says successfully installed. Okay, so the next thing we can do now is actually select our map. It's already default onto it because it just picked it up. As you see right next to my car, it says our YouTube map. And all we have to do is go down to the bottom. Let me just see if you can see that there. And we just have to click this go button down here, and we'll be all right. And then the map will boot up inside of Assetto Corsa, and we're going to go give it a test run. So let's start that. All right, now that we're inside of the game, we are inside of our map. We got our car. All we have to do is hit play, and I got my wheel plugged in here. Let me just get closer to the pedal. And as you see, we have all of our objects. They're a little bit bright. Don't worry about this stuff at the side. These are just mods for recording things, but all the objects are a little bit bright right now due to the light intensity, and you can change that ambient light a little bit. When we had it darker, it might be a little bit better of a choice for bright daylight. So you can go ahead and do that, but I'm just going to go ahead up here into the ramps like we were talking about. Remember, this one right ahead of me is solid, so this one we should be able to drive up, and we can. So we can go right up to that ramp up there, and back down, and as you see, we just went off the thing. in everything that we had one wall, remember, one wall underscore the name, we'll be able to have a collider like this wall here, that ramp we just went off of. But this ramp right here did not have that naming, and see, we can drive right through it. So that's what I meant by that. It's very important to make sure you do that. And then we have our little drift tunnel right here you can drive down. As you see, that's pretty cool. Yeah, a lot of fun. As you see, that's solid too. Boom. Rock solid, right? So that's a lot of fun to do, and that's pretty much how you add custom objects to an Assetto Corsa map, right? So you can let your imagination run wild. You can do this with anything. Just make sure it's an FBX. Use the KS editor and do everything like I said. I'll put all the description in the video. I'll put in all of the map files there. I'll put it all in one folder. So everything was just like the tutorial you followed along with. And then everybody, thank you, Dan Bruska and Rem for the template and showing me how to make, give me some tips and stuff on how to make this a little bit better. So thank you very much for everybody for tuning in today. And if you liked today's video, please do like and subscribe. And I will see you all later. Have a good night.